Durst the worst?
Durst the worst.
Durst the worst.
Durst the worst.
Oh, Durst the worst.
Durst is the worst.
Durst 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 the worst.
Looks of things, the American Psychiatric Association is pretty fucking sketchy. So I'm gonna listen to this article and talk about it. But apparently an amicus brief was filed in Alabama to criminalize the gender-affirming care for so-called transgender children and adolescents. But yeah, 10 years in prison for the physicians that do that. I think they should expand that to adults too. If you do that to adults, you should, I mean, it's just like medical malpractice. It should be considered as such. It's mutilation of somebody who's having a mental illness, like a mental problem of dysphoria. So it should be treated way more sensibly. But let's just listen to this robotic voice. If it loads.
In an amicus brief, APA and dozens of other medical organizations told an Alabama court that effective treatment of gender dysphoria saves lives and banning the availability of gender-affirming care will irreparably harm youth. The brief was filed in a lawsuit challenging Alabama's recently passed law.
Oh, okay, so the amicus brief was it was filed by the APA against the passed law in Alabama. So let's check this out.
Known as the Vulnerable Child Compassion and Protection Act, SB 184.
Based SB 184.
The law makes gender-affirming care for children and adolescents, such as puberty blockers or hormone therapy, a felony, punishable by up to 10 years in prison and a fine of up to $15,000.
Based?
The law claims that he sex of a person is the biological state of being female or male, based on sex organs, chromosomes, and endogenous hormone profiles, and is genetically encoded into a person at the moment of conception, and it cannot be changed.
All that is true.
In response,
very based. I mean, I know that's very anti-Semitic language, you know, like, you know, very. But seriously, folks, I mean, this is pretty base. So this just lends credence to the notion that, I mean, the entire psychiatric field is pretty fucking bullshit. Go get therapy or whatever. Someone tells you to go get therapy, like from whom exactly? People that are affirming this? People that are affirming that chopping up somebody's booba makes sense if they're having a mental delusion that they're something that they're not? Or chopping up somebody's no-no bits because they're having a problem. Yeah, dude, chop your dick off. It's science. You'll love it. Like,
Alabama families, a pastor, a pediatrician, and a clinical psychologist filed a lawsuit challenging the law.
Cox.
The U.S. Department of Justice joined the suit, alleging that the law violates the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause by discriminating against patients on the basis of sex and transgender status. APA filed it.
So yeah, there you go. Your Constitution is just being treated as an ash swipe by Oive, I wonder who. Yeah, your Constitution is being used to justify like genitally mutilating kids. So that's a thing.
Amicus
that's a clown
brief,
world
along
thing.
with more than 20 other professional organizations, including the AMA and the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Totally legit.
In the brief, the medical associations detail the well-accepted medical guidelines for treating gender dysphoria in adolescents and outline the damage denying such care to youth who need it would cause.
Oh my God.
The results of multiple studies indicate that adolescents suffering from gender dysphoria who receive medical interventions as part of their gender-affirming care experience improvements in their overall well-being, the brief states. It notes one study's finding that approximately 9 in 10 transgender adults who wanted puberty-blocking treatment but did not receive it reported lifetime suicidal ideation.
Dude, like half of them report suicidal ideation regardless. They have a disproportionate amount of mental illness regardless. That's such a fucking disingenuous point to make. Yeah, I mean, these people are having mental illness issues regardless, and when you mutilate them and chop them up, like, that probably makes it worse. Like, I don't need a fucking study to prove that to me. Like, that's just common sense, dude. Half these people commit suicide before and after. Oh, well, I have a study that says that double mastectomies for 14-year-olds is a good idea because they saw a TikTok video. Like, oh, okay, you can take your study and shove it up your kosher ass. I don't give a fuck.
The brief notes that the text of the Alabama law includes a host of incorrect medical information, claiming that a substantial majority of children who experience discordance between their sex and identity will outgrow the discordance once they go through puberty
that is
and
true.
will eventually have an identity that aligns with their sex.
That is true.
The law endorses a wait-and-see approach, suggesting that a large majority of youth with gender dysphoria will adopt an identity congruent with their sex by late adolescence. This assertion
This is the very kosher article, isn't it? Like the way we like to marvel at how absurd leftists are, they like to marvel at how rational we are and try to act as if we are being irrational. Right? So someone correctly points out that a kid experiencing gender dysphoria is likely to grow out of it naturally, so we don't need to frickin' give them Lupron and carve them up. Basically, like they see, from a progressive lefty, kosher lefty perspective, they marvel at us for saying the rational thing, which is, yeah, the kid's gonna grow out of it. We marvel at them for how absurdly insane they are because they see little Timmy play with a Barbie and they want to chop up his wang and give him Lupron so that, kosher big pharma can make a whole bunch of shekels. You know what I mean? Like, so rationality just these days seems to not prevail at all.
Scientific support, the medical organizations state in the brief. Using watchful waiting with gender dysphoric adolescents can cause immense harm by denying them treatment that could alleviate their distress and forcing them to experience full endogenous puberty, resulting in physical changes that may be reversed, if at all, only through surgery. Research shows that adolescents with gender dysphoria who receive puberty blockers and/or hormone therapy experience less depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation, the brief continues. Several studies have found that hormone therapy is associated with reductions in the rate of suicide attempts and significant improvement in quality of life. Shortly after the law went into effect on May 8, a federal judge issued a partial injunction, blocking the part of the law that makes prescribing hormones or puberty-blocking drugs a felony.
Damn, cock.
Other aspects of the law remain in place, including the requirement that school personnel are not allowed to withhold from parents their child's gender identity, as well as the ban on gender-affirming surgery.
Now, that is some sketchy shit right there. Anybody that's okay with the school faculty going behind the parents' back with the gender stuff and the kids, anybody that's okay with that is automatically a pedo. No questions, no denying, no argument. You are automatically Jeffrey Dahmer. Fuck you.
For youth. In response to the injunction, Republican Governor Kay Ivey called the ruling a temporary roadblock, and the state's Attorney General Steve Marshall indicated his intent to appeal. In a statement, Clinton Martin, MD, president of the Alabama Psychiatric Physicians Association, APPA, said that APPA strongly disagrees with any legislative efforts to undermine the patient-doctor relationship. This is a sacred bond and should be free from political or religious biases. The Alabama
How convenient
law
for you to say that. This is already politically and religiously biased in favor of a very Marxist perspectives, but do
part of a
continue.
push across the country to restrict access to gender-affirming care for transgender youth. Earlier this year,
sex-denying mutilation, not gender-affirming care. Sex-denying mutilation. That's what we should call it.
APA joined another amicus brief in support of a lawsuit challenging a non-binding directive issued by the Texas governor, which claims that gender-affirming care constitutes child abuse. See Psychiatric News. A Texas court had blocked the directive and stopped the state from investigating families of transgender youth, but in May the Texas Supreme Court ruled that those investigations could continue. Researchers from Yale University and the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center issued a report stating that the medical claims included in the Alabama law and in the Texas directive are not grounded in reputable science and are full of errors of omission and inclusion. It goes on to say that, while omitting the evidence demonstrating the substantial benefits of treatment for gender dysphoria, and by focusing on invented and exaggerated harms, the Alabama law and the Texas directive...
I really doubt that we have any comprehensive, real evidence that so-called gender-affirming care is actually good for people, or good for adolescents. We know that this idea that you can just pause puberty is bullshit. You can't actually do that. You're, permanently fucking up somebody's development. And this detrans movement is at least a shred of evidence for that claim. I mean, it's just, you're going to see a lot more of these detransitioner people speaking out and getting silenced by these kind of people.
Portray a warped picture of the scientific evidence.
Bullshit.
The researchers,
Science
including
bullshit,
3 physicians, point out in their executive summary that a solid body of reputable evidence shows that gender-affirming care is life-saving. It would be considered unethical to withhold medical care from patients with gender dysphoria, just as it would be unethical to withhold potentially life-saving care for patients with any other serious medical condition.
Such bullshit, dude. All they have to do is vaguely allude to the experts and vaguely allude to studies and assertions and stuff like that. It's just, they just assert over and over and over again. Did you notice that that article just was endlessly just blindly asserting that so-called gender-affirming care improves the overall mood of these people? No, dude, there's really no indication of that whatsoever. It doesn't pass the basic common sense smell test. It just really doesn't. And, you know, constant appeals to, like, get therapy or whatever, it's iffy. Like, if you tell one of these people, you know, either, you know, like, some boomer right-wing QAnon psycho or a left-wing, you know, tranny SJW, you tell them to go get some fucking psychiatric help, where are they getting it from? These people, right, who are affirming delusional, psychotic crap, ultimately to get you on drugs, you know, prescription drugs, to get you in the doctor's office with this procedure and that procedure. It's just for shekels, man. Speaking of which, I got some donation links in the description. This was a video request from Subscribestar, but I got Subscribestar and Coffee links, also Spotify links. Check out those songs that I got, this new one that I will play us out with now.